Okay, so let me get this straight. The Acolyte cost $230 million. Not $180 million like we thought, but $230 million for a show that failed miserably. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars per minute. What the hell were they even thinking? I mean, you'd think with that kind of budget, we'd at least get a decent show. But no. Instead, we get this agenda-driven mess that has nothing to do with Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy and her team didn't care about telling a good story. They just wanted to check all the diversity and inclusion boxes. Look, representation is important, but shoving it in our faces at the expense of a decent plot. Come on.
Exactly. It's like they don't even care about what made Star Wars great. $230 million down the drain for a show that alienated fans even more, and the audacity of Kennedy to blame the fans for its failure. It's not the toxic fan base that caused this. It's her. She's the one steering the ship into an iceberg and then acting surprised when it sinks. Fans have been telling her for years that all they want is a good story, but she keeps pushing this nonsense that no one asked for. And now she's acting like The Acolyte was some groundbreaking masterpiece that we just didn't appreciate. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then she throws this pity party about how the critics and fans are the reason the Star Wars brand is failing. Are you serious? Lady, you've been at Lucasfilm since 2012, and in that time you've driven the franchise into the ground. It's almost impressive how she's managed to turn one of the most beloved movie franchises of all time into this disaster. And the fact that she's blaming the fans is just laughable. You can't keep putting out garbage and then act shocked when people don't like it. It's not toxicity, it's called having standards.
Right. She's so out of touch with what Star Wars fans actually want. George Lucas created a universe that was all about adventure, hope, and mythological storytelling. What does Kathleen Kennedy do? She turns it into her personal platform for pushing agenda. And what really gets me is how she's acting like The Acolyte was about honoring that legacy. Please, it had nothing to do with George Lucas's vision. It was just another poorly written, convoluted mess that tried to use representation as a shield for bad storytelling. Or you can have diversity without making it feel forced, but apparently that concept is lost on it.
And now she's blaming Disney for not giving The Acolyte a second season because, surprise, surprise, the numbers weren't there. I mean, what does she expect? When you spend $230 million on a show and it bombs, of course Disney's going to pull the plug. But instead of accepting that maybe the project wasn't as groundbreaking as she thought, she blames the toxicity of the fan base. It's the same tired excuse every time fans don't like something, so they must be toxic. No, maybe the content just isn't that good.
Exactly. And the fact that she's trying to stick around until 2027 to prove herself. That's rich. She's had how many chances to get it right? And each time it's been a disaster. The sequel trilogy divided the fan base. The Acolyte, a total flop. But she thinks she's going to turn it all around with one successful Star Wars movie. I don't think so. And let's be real here. Her idea of success and the fans' idea of success are two totally different things. She probably thinks if she makes a movie that checks all her ideological boxes, it'll be a win, even if no one watches it.
And let's not forget the drama with Bob Iger and the Disney board. Apparently, a growing number of board members are calling for her to step down, and I don't blame them. Lucasfilm is in a mess, and she's at the center of it. But you just know she's going to fight tooth and nail to stay in power. She's not going to walk away quietly. And even if she does manage to renew her contract, it's not like the drama is going to stop. There's going to be constant infighting at Disney, and meanwhile, the Star Wars brand is just going to keep crumbling.
Exactly. Even if she manages to stay, it's not like things are going to magically get better. If anything, they'll get worse. She's proven time and again that she doesn't understand Star Wars, and she clearly doesn't care about what the fans want. And that whole thing about her saying the fans need to keep their opinions to themselves. Seriously, the fans are the reason Star Wars has lasted as long as it has. They're the ones who've kept this franchise alive. And she's out here acting like their opinions don't matter. If anything, the fans know more about what Star Wars should be than she ever will.
That's the thing. The fans do know more because they actually care about the universe George Lucas created. Kathleen Kennedy, she's more interested in turning it into her own soapbox, and now she's whining about how toxic fans are the reason Disney didn't renew The Acolyte. No, Disney didn't renew it because it was a failure. Plain and simple. You can't keep blaming the audience when your product doesn't live up to expectations. Maybe instead of blaming the fans, she should take a hard look at the content she's been putting out.
But you know she won't. She's already gearing up to blame fans for whatever disaster comes next. Whether it's this Rey movie that's on hold or whatever other project she's got in the pipeline and inevitably flops, it'll be the same story. The fans didn't appreciate it, or the fan base is toxic. At this point, she's become a broken record. And the sad part is Star Wars is the one that's paying the price. The longer she stays in charge, the more damage she does to the brand.
And the worst part is Disney keeps letting her. I mean, how many failures does it take before they finally realize she's the problem? She's been in charge for over a decade, and in that time, the franchise has lost so much of what made it special. They need someone who actually cares about the stories, not someone who's more interested in pushing their personal agenda. But until Disney wakes up and makes some real changes, we're just going to keep seeing more of the same. More failed projects, more fan backlash, and more excuses from Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, and at this point, even if she's ousted, the damage she's done might be irreversible. The fans who've walked away aren't going to magically come back just because she's gone. It's going to take someone who truly understands the heart and soul of Star Wars to bring this franchise back from the brink. But if Disney keeps letting her run the show, they might as well start preparing for more billion-dollar losses. The fans deserve better. And honestly, so does the legacy of Star Wars.